Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Way Forward Workshop Leader Lunch Break. We are pleased to welcome Marcie Goodman to the conversation. A week from today, Playhouse Square and its theaters will be hopping as the 47th Cleveland International Film Festival takes over East 14th Street and Euclid Avenue. It is the culmination of thousands of hours of planning and many more thousands of hours of screenings, all to present the best and most thought-provoking films to audiences, yes, in Northeast Ohio, but also around the world. Behind the scenes, making sure it all happens as planned, is Marcie Goodman, Executive Director of Cleveland International Film Festival, affectionately known as CIFF. It's an organization she joined in 1987. She's a native Clevelander and a Case Western Reserve University graduate who secured her future in film with a letter to the founder, John Furman, offering to work for him. He called her, offered her a job, and the rest is history. That history will be manifested this year with 121 feature films, 199 shorts, all from 67 countries, and more than 77,000 viewers. Marcie's been recognized as a Cleveland Power 150, a WKYC Boss Lady of Cle. She's the recipient of a Cleveland Arts Prize, as well as the Governor's Award for Arts in Ohio, and many more well-deserved recognitions. Marcie, tell us all about what next week and the days following are going to hold.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you to the Cleveland Leadership Center for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about the film festival. Thank you for mentioning John Foreman, our founder. And I want to also mention Dave Witkowski, my predecessor. In our 47 years, we've had 3 executive directors, and we all graduated from Case Western Reserve University. Just fun fact. All right, I'm going to start with a quote. And this is the Lauren Michael quote. It's old. It's about 25 years old. I read it to my staff every year the day before opening night for about 20 years, and they got really tired of it, and they wouldn't let me read it anymore. But now nobody can stop me. So here's the quote. Having once left only to return to see his creation through to the new millennium, Mr. Michaels now has no intention of ever walking away from Saturday Night Live. It's the synergy of the thing at its essence. That's the thing I most love about it, Mr. Michaels said. You have designers, musicians, directors, writers, all together in this act of putting on a show. It doesn't go on because it's ready. It goes on because it's 11:30. It is exhilarating. And once you've had that high, it's sort of hard to live without it. And Marianne, as you said, the 47th Cleveland International is going to open exactly 1 week from tonight, not because we're ready, but because it's opening night and we can't wait. And so, yes, we will be at Playhouse Square from Wednesday, March 22nd through Saturday, April 1st. This is the 3rd home in our history. We got to spend our first 14 years at the Cedar Lee Theater in Cleveland Heights. And then in 1990, which is when I learned about vision, our board voted to move the festival to what was then the brand new Tower City Center. We made that move in 1991, and we got to spend 29 years at Tower City, and they were just incredible years there and wonderful for our organization. And at the end of 2019, led by Chris Blake, our board president, our board voted to move us permanently to our 3rd and forever home at Playhouse Square. So 2020 was supposed to be our 30th and final year at Tower City. And then in 2021, we were going to celebrate our 45th anniversary in our new home at Playhouse Square. We all know what happened. We didn't get to Playhouse Square until last year in 2022 for the 46th festival. From our last day at Tower City in 2019 to our first day at Playhouse Square in 2022, there were 1,088 days. So if that doesn't tell you that we're starting over, nothing does. And we have started over. We're so happy to be at Playhouse Square. And last year we were walking around saying, we feel like we graduated with honors, but we love our partner there. Like us, Playhouse Square starts at yes. and they're just so wonderful to work with. And then for the second year in a row, this is going to be a hybrid festival, meaning that we'll close on Saturday, April 1st, and then on April 2nd through April 9th, we'll be online. We'll present SIF Streams, which is presented by PNC, and they have supported this part of the festival and so many others for many years, and we're just so grateful to PNC. And so during our film festival this year, we're going to have 121 feature films, 199 short films. We're representing 67 countries. There'll be 190 in-person screenings when we're streaming. That's on demand, and we have 125 community partners, which I'll get back to in a moment. We also have Film Slam, and Film Slam is our program for students in grades 5 through 12. Pre-pandemic, they would come to the film festival on the 7 weekday mornings and be in person. And then in 2020, when we had to suddenly pivot to becoming an online festival, we realized that we could do the same thing with Film Slam and offer educators content online that they were so desperate for. So we created a new year-round program called Film Slam Streams. And not this school year, but the one prior to this, we had over 300,000 student streams. So it's an amazing statewide program. Last year and this year, the kids will be back in person at the festival, and we can't wait to have them. So that's a really exciting piece of what we do. And then in terms of our community partners, guess what? The Leadership Center is one of them. And the center is partnering on 2 films, and they couldn't be more perfect for the organization. The first one is called Join or Die, and it features Robert Putnam and his work on social capital, which is all about the importance of engagement and being together and joining a group and being part of an association like the Leadership Center of Cleveland. So we're going to show you a trailer from that film, and that will be coming right up.
This is Bob. Bob's a big fan of clubs.
I belong to everything. That's my high school bowling team. I'm the tall one in the middle.
And this is a film about why you should join one, and how Bob discovered that the fate of America depends on it.
Harvard professor and award-winning writer Robert Putnam.
You've been described as the poet laureate of civil society.
Robert D. Putnam, for deepening our understanding of community in America.
He made people pay attention to a concept that most people had never paid attention to.
Social capital. Social capital. Social capital. Social networks have value.
I'd like to call on Professor Robert Putnam, who gave us the concept of social capital.
The number of people who know one another's first name, the number of people who take part in community organizations, the level of trust and reciprocity in the community.
The places that have better government are the places that have a long history of social networks and social capital.
Your chances of dying over the next year are cut in half by joining one group.
Bowling Alone. Where'd you get the title?
I happened to run into a friend who owned a bowling alley, and he said, "Gosh, Bob, you don't know it, but you've stumbled onto the major economic problems facing my industry, because although more Americans are bowling than ever before, bowling is up in America. Bowling in leagues, bowling in teams is off by about 60%.
Everything that reflects connections with other people are going down. How many times last year did you go to church?
Down.
How many times did you go to a dinner party?
Down.
How many times last year did you go to a club meeting? In barely a couple of decades, half all the civic infrastructure in America had simply vanished. It's equivalent to saying half of all the roads in America just disappeared.
Everyone has a feeling something's happening, but then he's got charts to actually show what's actually happening.
Whatever's happening to people's sense of mutual obligation, to their understanding about the common good, to their willingness to trust their neighbor, is no longer going on because people are bowling alone.
The book Bowling Alone, which you're familiar with by Robert Putnam.
The activity may still be going on, but there's no social capital being built.
That decreases the trust we have in one another. How lonely Americans are, how divided.
You know, he may have been onto something.
We have to see loneliness as a threat to our health security and to our overall national security.
We are trying something that hasn't been done before, which is growing and sustaining a multiracial democracy.
Politics and policy ultimately depends on the social health of our country.
Organization, connections with other people is the only way you get big change.
Democracy is a pain in the ass. If it was just easy, no one would have to go to a meeting and it would all just be fair and easy. You should join, your kids should join, and if there's not an organization you want to join, create one.
America doesn't have to be the kind of America that you've lived in your whole life. You could decide to change history.
So this is a really important documentary. Robert Putnam is from Port Clinton, Ohio. He will be here for the festival. So if you attend the screening, there are 2 screenings during the festival, you'll get to meet him. And documentaries are such a huge part of our festival. We're not a doc festival, but we have a lot of docs every year. Our audience loves documentaries, and we're opening this year with a documentary, which doesn't happen too often, but our opening night film this year is called Butterfly in the Sky, and it's about the creation and the history of the PBS show Reading Rainbow. And we will have 4 guests here from the film on opening night, including the director, the producer, and 2 of the people who created the show. So it's going to be an amazing opening night. We're partnering with the Cleveland Public Library on this one and the mayor's Cleveland Reads program, which we're really so proud to be able to do that. And then the other program that we're partnering with the Leadership Center on is called Olympic Oaks, Continuing Jesse Owens' Legacy. And it's a first for us in that the film is a short film. It's about 17 minutes long, but we're creating an entire hour and a half or so program around it. There will be a panel discussion. And the short documentary is about Jesse Owens, who was the 1936 Olympian, and what his life was like and the racism he encountered despite being an American hero. And also there were trees that were planted as part of his history, and so the film covers that as well. And so Leadership Center is partnering on this, as are a number of other entities, and it's going to be great. One of Jesse Owens' relatives, Tyrone Owens, will be part of the panel, part of the discussion. And so we have a trailer for this short film that we're going to show you.
This is a story that every Clevelander should know, every American should know.
There were Black people in America saying, Jesse, don't go. Don't do it. Boycott these Olympics.
If we at that time would have said that we would not go to Germany in 1936, then we would not have been able to explode a myth that a man was trying to perpetuate upon the world about Aryan supremacy.
When Jesse got the 4 gold medals, he also got 4 oak trees that he brought back to Cleveland and have been planted here in the city. The only tree left is the tree at Rhodes, and that tree has lived past its useful life.
The original tree is dying, and someone had enough belief in this story to pass the story on for the next generation and generations after that.
Holden first heard about the Jesse Owens tree through one of our contractors who was working on the tree at the time, and I think he was concerned that the tree was really not in the best of health. And so our curator at the time and he worked together to collect material from the tree, and we then worked with one of our local nursery partners to actually propagate the tree.
With the partnership of Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation and others, they have really taken on with the district grafting the tree and to continue Jesse's legacy.
I want everybody to know this story. I want everyone who comes to Cleveland for the first time or for the 20th time to know that you have to go check out the Jesse Owens Olympic Oaks, because Jesse Owens in 1936 stood up to the worst of humanity's history and inspired us.
So this really important program will be screening at the festival on Thursday, March 23rd. We have a centerpiece screening this year at the festival, it's a film that we highlight, draw special attention to. It's another documentary called Being Mary Tyler Moore. You can figure out what it's about. Last year, our centerpiece screening was Navalny, which just won the Academy Award on Sunday, and we're so happy and excited for that team. The director was here last year for that. And then our closing night film is a narrative. It's called I Like Movies, which is, I don't even know what it's about, but it's a perfect title for a closing night film. And that'll happen, as we said, on Saturday, April 1st. And I could go on, but I'd much rather answer questions.
Marcie, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing the trailers. Certainly some very exciting stories being highlighted this year in the festival. I think a great place to start would be, how do you determine what films are included each year in the festival?
Well, let's see. We have Mallory Martin is our artistic director, and she works with a team of programmers from all over a very small team, but they're from all over the country. And so they travel either in person or virtually to other film festivals and watch films. And while they're doing that, every summer we launch our call for entries where filmmakers from around the world submit their films. And this year we had about almost 4,000 submissions. And so Mallory and her team of programmers cannot come home from their travels and watch 4,000 more movies. So we have about 170 screening team judges, and our judges are volunteers, and they're not film critics and they're not film scholars, because that's not who we're programming for. They're members of our audience. And each film that's submitted is viewed by 3 people, scored, and if it gets a high enough score, it moves on. Mallory and her team of programmers watch all features that are scored high enough, and then the films they see in their travels. And then Paul Sloop, our shorts guy, and his team of programmers watch the shorts that get high enough scores. And so after 47 years, we have a sense of what our audience likes and what's important to this community to share. And we like to think we have something for everyone in the film festival via our features and our shorts. And, every now and then I'll run into someone who will say they didn't come to the festival because there wasn't anything they wanted to see. And I'll be like, what do you want to see? Like, we have everything, so. And the other thing is, the point of a film festival is to just try things out, take a chance. When we were at Tower City, the theaters were color coded as they are at Playhouse Square, but we used, I think, 10 or so theaters at Tower City. And I have a friend who every year she and her husband would come on a Friday and they would pick a theater color. And that's the theater they would stay in all day, not knowing what they were going to see. And I always thought that's the way to do it. So we always say that we're showing the newest and best films from around the world, and we are. But we're also showing what we think will work for our audience of 47 years.
So speaking of all of the theaters and the schedule, I mean, that is an impressive schedule to have to put together. How do you determine which theater, what screen, what timing, and put this whole schedule together?
Again, Mallory Martin, our artistic director, and a couple other people do that. Some of it is the availability of the film. Certain films we can only have for these 2 days. It's a giant puzzle. So you're looking at the availability of the film. You're looking at, certain films might be better on a Saturday night than a Monday afternoon, or vice versa. We know when people like to see comedy shorts, for example, just historically, things like that. But it is a great big giant puzzle with thousands of moving parts and considerations. It's one of the hardest things to accomplish in preparing for the film festival.
So you mentioned the different aspects and the different types of shows and movies that you have in the schedule. What tends to be the most popular each year?
That varies, although I will tell you right now, I think the highest ticket seller is Being Mary Tyler Moore, our centerpiece screening. So It depends. Once the film festival gets started and the buzz starts to be created and people start talking about what they've seen and what they've liked, and then tickets are, of course, sold throughout the festival. And that, to me, that's always such a fun part of the festival, because it's hard to predict what will get buzz. We're not necessarily ever right about that. But that I think that's a huge piece of what people decide to see and what does really well in the festival.
You mentioned that one of the documentaries from last year just won an Academy Award. How many, if you know, of the films you featured have gone on to win awards?
I don't know, but what I do know is that we are one of, I can't remember the number now, maybe 30 Academy qualifying festivals in the world for short film. So that means that we have our short, 3 of our short film awards, documentary, narrative, and animated, are juried. We have a jury who decides those winners, and we send those winners along to the Academy for nomination consideration. They're not automatically nominated, but they're considered. And over the years that we've been Academy Award eligible in all 3 categories, we've had many films nominated, and we have had a handful of winners. And so we take that really personally. It's like, oh, they won, you know, because of us, which isn't true at all, but that's how we like to look at it. So quite a few shorts. You know, features too over the years, although off the top of my head, I can only remember as far back as Sunday. So we had one. We had 2. We had the Irish Goodbye, which won Best Short at the Academy Awards, is in the festival this year.
So you mentioned being a part of a smaller group that has this opportunity. How then does the film festival stack up against film festivals across the world?
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's really hard to find apples to apples in the film festival world. Every festival, you know, different number of days, different number of films, different times of years, different locations, etc. There are what's known as market festivals, and those are the festivals we've all heard of. Sundance, Toronto, South by Southwest, which is just happening, and you know, those kinds of film festivals. We are not one of those. We are what's known as a regional festival. We are here to serve our community. We really care about our community, Northeast Ohio, and not much beyond that. Being a regional festival, we are really well known around the world. Part of it is our age. We're old in the film festival world, though certainly not the oldest. But our guest filmmakers, every year we bring in a few hundred guest filmmakers. They are our ambassadors around the world. And every year they tell us that they've never felt more welcome or more embraced than they do here. And that's because it's Cleveland and the Midwest. And that's what we're all about. So we are not a red carpet celebrity paparazzi kind of festival at all, nor do we want to be, because our filmmakers, who, you know, for the most part, you've probably never heard of, they're our celebrities, and we don't want to take away from their moment in the spotlight. So that's just who we are. We're all about community.
And during that time of the festival, you bring so many folks into downtown Cleveland where they spend money and give back. So has this been an opportunity to quantify the economic impact of the festival for Cleveland?
It will be. Pre-pandemic, when we thought we were going to be moving to Playhouse Square in 2021, we were saying it would take us 3 to 5 years to settle into our new home and to the district. We got a late start, and it's going to take us longer than that. And so once we feel settled in, we will do an economic impact survey, absolutely. But I'd say that's a few years down, at least a few years down the line, down the road. One thing that we and every film festival and movie theater are facing a challenge is that, and this is just me speaking, there's no scientific evidence of this, but because of the pandemic, people's viewing habits, which might have changed incrementally over the course of 10 years or so, changed in a year. And so people got so used to staying home to watch things at home, and there's so much to watch. Good things, good programs, good movies. And so it's up to us as a film festival to get people off the couch and to come to Playhouse Square. And so what can we do that's compelling to make that happen? And so, that is a huge challenge. And what can we do? Well, we can show films that for the most part will not stream ever. I mean, some may show up on Netflix, at some point, but most of them are not going to stream, except when we stream them for part of the streams. And we can bring in our guest filmmakers, which of course, that's what makes a film festival is have the artists there to engage with our audience. And we can make the experience as good for our audience as possible. And customer service is of monumental importance to what we do.
So for us, this is a moment in our year where we get access to these films, but we know for your team, this is a year-round process. What does the year look like for your team at the film festival?
Well, in April, we take naps and then we start all over again. The fundraising part of the organization never ends. I mean, we are a nonprofit organization. We do operate year round. We have 8 full-time staff. This year we'll have between 200 and 300 seasonal consultants. Our budget's just over $3 million. So fundraising, of course, is year round. And our programmers start almost immediately attending other festivals in the spring and summer. We launch our call for entries over the summer. So everyone does their job. It's quarterly in a way. The summer quarter is a bit quieter, but then things flip on Labor Day and we get much busier with various pieces of the festival, and then forget it after January 1st. Oh my gosh. It's pretty wild and crazy. And right now with the week out, there's a lot going on here and at Playhouse Square. So it kind of builds over the course of the year. I once did a presentation with someone who's no longer in the community, and he ran a theater organization, and he had more than once said to me how lucky we were to only have to do one thing a year. I was just like, oh my God. And I was very nervous that he was going to say that while we were doing our presentation, and I was going to have to punch him out. And so I had to come up with something I would say. And what I would have said is that we work really hard to make it look so easy. None of that happened, but it is true that we do work very hard to make it look so easy.
So Marcie, as you look ahead for the next 5 years, what's your vision for the film festival and where it's headed?
I would probably be answering that question differently had we not had been in a pandemic these past few years. Like, everyone has had such an impact. So I think our vision really is to settle into Playhouse Square, to rebuild, because the way I look at it is we did start all over 1 year ago. So we're rebuilding. We do hope that organically we can do more, become more involved in the Playhouse Square district. And we are a resident company of Playhouse Square. Like, we finally belong to something, and we want to work with the other resident companies. But it's our 50th anniversary 3 years from now. And that's a huge piece of what we're looking toward and what we're planning for. And we're really excited about that. Right now we're in the brainstorming phase, and we're just gathering lists of things that we could do for our 50th anniversary. At some point we'll have to narrow it down, but that's really exciting for us to look toward that.
So Marcie, we have time for one quick question. Coming off of the Oscars this Sunday, what was your favorite part and why?
For sure, my favorite part was that back-to-back An Irish Goodbye and Navalny won Academy Awards. And again, we take these wins so personally. So I just loved that happened. And we're just so happy for the filmmakers. We're also so happy that our filmmakers get to screen their films at Playhouse Square in those theaters. I don't think there's a filmmaker out there who says to themselves, gosh, I hope that someday somebody watches my movie on their TV or their computer screen or their iPad or their iPhone. So instead, we get to give them the opportunity to show their films in these magnificent theaters at Playhouse Square. So Navalny got to do that, and An Irish Goodbye is going to get to do that, and we can't wait for our filmmakers to get here with their films.
Marcie, thank you so very much. We express our gratitude, and we're going to hope that next year your Academy Award winner stops to express their gratitude to you and your Cleveland International Film Festival team. Special shout out to Patrick Shepard, our loyal alum who is on the call and I know has been making the video clips happen. So thank you for all you do, Patrick.